It's time for Lean In with Dr. Marlin on CCFM 107.5, unpacking the connection between spirituality and academia.
Good evening, family. My name is Phineas Waha and welcome to Leaning In with Dr. Marlin. Another Tuesday from 6 until 7 on the dot, speaking about his book. But we have a little bit of a surprise for you this evening. We're not going to be diving into Dr. Marlin's book this evening. We have another different agenda. But I'm going to let the man of the hour announce that for you because it was his brilliant idea. Good evening, sir.
It was. That's a question. Hi, Phineas. Good evening, family. I hope you are well. Yes.
You good? How was your week?
It was good.
Good week?
It was good. Yeah,
weather?
it's challenging.
Yeah.
But if there's no challenge, it doesn't feel like it's a working week. You know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Even with your grey hair, you still want to be challenged?
Yes, with all my grey hair. But this is not wisdom. This is just of standing in the sun. You know? So, I'm an outdoorsy type of person.
Listen, I grew up being told if you have grey hair, that means you have a lot of money. Is that true?
Look, I don't know. I must go speak to my manager about this. Yeah, but tonight it's awesome tonight. Look, we got a special guest all the way from Abu Dhabi.
How did you get somebody from there?
Look, the Lord answers prayers.
Lord answers prayers.
Absolutely. When we said we want international reach, like this,
it happens.
It happens.
Yeah, you can actually listen to CCFM internationally if you get their app.
Absolutely.
You
can, So download the app wherever you are and tell your friends and family to listen to us.
And you can listen to Dr. Marlin. But anyway, would you like to introduce the guest?
Yes, tonight we have Mr. Robert Charnley. Yes, and he wrote a book.
Welcome, sir.
And it's an awesome book.
It's an awesome book.
Yes, it's about one of my favorite topics.
What is that?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness?
Yes, 70 times 7. You heard that story?
You see, sometimes forgiveness in today's world feels like a swear word.
Let's not go there. Let's look at our guest and introduce our guest. He can introduce himself.
How are you, sir?
Hi, Robert. How are you doing? Welcome.
Good evening, guys. Yes, as they already said, my name is Robert Charnley, and I live in Abu Dhabi, and September will be 12 years since living in Abu Dhabi. But before that, I lived with my family in the UK for 12 years. So literally, we've been out of the country for 24 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And tell me, Robert, all the way just for the launch of this book, just for the radio show with CCFM, tell us more. I mean, come on. Talk about this book. Give us some little insight. Just give us a background before we get our teeth sunk into the forgiveness bit.
Yes. I was invited by Liesel Sneeman to come and join you guys, and also to launch the book, which I wrote about 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I self-published on Amazon. But I got into contact with Liesel, and she literally is running with the project, and she introduced me to her company, to her publishing house. And from there, she invited me to come over to launch the book. So we're launching the book tomorrow at the exclusive books at the V&A waterfront, and then on Thursday in Belha, and on Saturday at the Dutch Library in I forgot the name now, in Pinetown. Yeah. So the book, like Dr. Marlin said, deals a lot with forgiveness. And I'm not sure whether I should go into that, but as a youngster, I experienced severe physical abuse at the hands of my stepfather.
Right.
And for years, I carried it with me. This burden of this burdensome pain. I carried it with me for years.
Wow.
And it wasn't up until we were expecting our first son about 19 years ago that I wrestled with this idea of, have I dealt with my past? Have I actually forgiven? And it gave me a lot of sleepless nights. And after that, I on recommendation from my uncle Clement, I literally confronted my abuser one day.
Wow.
And told him how I hated him all my life. I poured out my heart, my hateful heart.
And this after how many years?
After about 30 years.
Wow.
After about 30 years.
And Robert, just for a pause there.
Sure.
It's interesting you say, and the first thing that came to mind, and not to diminish the abuse, but it's so cliched, my stepfather.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
yes,
yet
yes.
abuse takes place by fathers
Yes.
of their own
Yes.
children.
Yes.
Yes. And it's
definitely.
and if we take that step but out, I mean, it still had that impact with you.
Yeah.
At what age was your stepfather introduced into your life? I just want
Okay. Before I answer that, can I just go back to
Sure.
to the stepfather? But rightfully so, you said that fathers, taking out the stepfather, fathers
Yes.
abuse their children as well.
Yeah.
And I know friends of ours back in Pretoria, her stepfather was more a father to her than her actual father.
Wow. Yes.
So it's not always
Yes.
the stepfather that it.
Yes.
You have. I like to say you have a stepfather who wasn't a stepfather, but he was a father that stepped up.
Yes.
Yeah.
awesome.
For me that that is it's not just stepfathers. It's different people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was introduced to my stepfather in I think 1983 when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And I was living with my grandmother, and they came to collect me to start school in Johannesburg in the Rado Park, and that's where I met my stepfather.
Okay.
And from the start, the abuse started, and it was just religious.
Wow.
How it continued.
So I don't want to take away from the book and go
Sure.
into the detail, because we want to sell the book as well. And I know we're all invited to the V&A Waterfront and to Ballard Library. We can give that details at the end of the show.
Sure.
What is interesting for me and what resonates with me is the fact that there are so many in our society that walks around with this hurt and this resentment.
Yeah.
Because abuse is not only the physical.
No, it's not.
It's not just laying hands, or
Yeah.
throwing fists or throwing hands. You get emotional abuse and psychological abuse. And I take it that all has that same impact, and how did you find after 30 years, did this actually impact your personality as a, because I take it you were married by then.
Yeah.
And your wife actually, your partner being with you during this process. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that process?
I think for me, how it impacted my life, I'd like to say that I didn't have the tools to deal with what I was carrying at the time, and I actually wanted just to backtrack it a bit to a statement you made earlier about people within our society carrying these burdens with them, and I truly believe that my stepfather carried the same burden.
Wow.
And he didn't know how to deal with it. He didn't have, and I'm lucky in my life I've got an amazing wife.
Yes.
And she, I would say, she's the rock that actually guided me towards that. So I think for me, the important thing is looking at society and seeing how people walking around carrying adults walking around carrying a hurt that they don't have the tools on how to deal with it, that leads them to becoming abusers, that leads them to becoming people who don't know how to forgive. And I think for me, the way I dealt with it is, like I said, I had sleepless nights of, have I dealt with this? Have I forgiven my past?
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that forgiveness is a gift that I have to give myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not something that I receive from my stepfather. It's something that I have to give myself.
Yes.
In order for me to be free, I have to forgive. And the beauty about it, I can see it in my relationship with my boys. It's an absolute beautiful relationship that differs day and night from what I went through.
Wow. And do you, sorry, Phineas, do you find, and I'm so proud of that, proud to hear that a man has stepped out and shown his vulnerability firstly.
Yeah.
And then also gone about to change the generational curse. And that is powerful. It's that generational curse that perpetuates in our society today.
Sure.
Because you so beautifully, and it just struck me that you said that your stepdad had the hurt. And he didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to let go of that hurt. And the only way he knew was the way he was taught. So there's a form of role modeling happening there.
Yeah.
Wow, that is powerful.
Yeah, I think the question that I wanted to ask, I usually like to interrogate stuff like this, because I remember when somebody told me that forgiveness is for you, Phineas. But I remember when I forgave my aunt for the same thing, which was more emotional abuse. And I learned that the forgiveness, yes, it was for me, but I realized how forgiving her freed her. And I realized actually me forgiving her was not just for me. The whole time when I held forgiveness from her, I actually imprisoned her by not forgiving her. So by me going to her and say, hey, I forgive you for emotionally and psychologically and mentally abusing me, I didn't know until I spoke with her and realized I thought I was in prison, but she was also in prison, and I had the power to release her from that bitterness, to release her from, what was holding her back from having that relationship with me, because obviously forgiveness stops people from having a relationship with one another. But then I realized, like you said, the forgiveness was for you, but I also realized how forgiving her also released her from actually reconciling with me and having a relationship with one another. Did forgiving your father change your relationship with your stepfather?
I think for me, forgiving him maybe didn't bring about the same kind of release for him. So we don't have a relationship per se,
right?
But we are civil. If we are in the room, I don't have that fear that I used to have of him. So I wouldn't say that forgiveness for me freed him. But I would say that forgiveness, when I approached him, when I confronted him, brought about an awareness of what he did wrong.
Yes.
And for me, that is the most important thing. And going from that is bringing an awareness to society today.
Right.
That is what we're struggling with. That is what we're lacking.
Right.
Just to bring about an awareness. Even if they don't forgive, even if they don't do anything about it, but at least they are aware that this is what I did wrong and I need to rectify it. I need to do something about it.
And you'll probably say that forgiveness does not always lead to reconciliation.
No, it does. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it can.
It can.
It can. And I think for me, probably the distance of where I live today, probably that's the reason. But can I just share a story?
Sure, please.
A year ago, we came back to South Africa, and we invited my siblings for a meal. And we invited my stepfather as well. And for me, I was like, no, he's not going to come. He's not going to come. Actually, to tell you the truth, I was hoping he was not going to come. And he did come. And that for me was just a reminder that, one, God works in mysterious ways. And two, what I shared with him when I forgave him brought about an awareness of what he did wrong. and maybe what he need to forgive himself or whoever his abuser was at the time. So I think it did bring an awareness, but maybe not reconciliation as you asked.
Yeah, I would like Dr. Marlin to bring in the listeners into this conversation. If you can share the number.
Yes, our number 061. Let me just get that number, because Dr. Marlin has got a habit of giving other people's numbers, so let me just get that right. Look, so it's 061 798 1075. 061 798 1075. And you know what's interesting, and I know, just to prep your mind, we're speaking from the view of the abuser now, right? And I want to explore that a bit more, because what is interesting, the other side to this coin is the heart, is the psyche of the abused, of the victim. So just for a moment, just to spend a little more time in this, that the abuse has a very broad sort of meaning or construct.
Okay.
When we speak about abuse. Because and I just want to bring people's attention to the fact that it does not mean physical abuse.
Okay.
It happens in marriages. It happens to kids. It happens among siblings.
Yeah.
It happens in almost every social dynamic that we can find ourselves in. And the interesting part is, for me, I thought, wow, you're blessed, because you get to do this reconciliation this side of the grave.
Good.
Good. Because there are so many that, because of an inability to forgive, and now the person is gone.
Yes.
Person has passed, and you sit with this grief. Heidi and I have this discussion constantly, and we say that it's important that you need to forgive yourself in that process. You want to just expand a bit more on that? Because surely you walked around with a lot of guilt.
Yes.
Within yourself.
Yeah. I would just want to touch on two things on that. The first thing is, for me, like you said, I had to forgive myself, because I heard this phrase saying that unforgiveness is like a container containing acid.
Right.
It damages the container more than it damages the person it's thrown onto.
Come on.
And for me, the reason why I had to forgive myself is because at the time I was voiceless. So now I had a better and a clearer understanding of where I stand, and like Dr. Marlin said about generational curse, breaking generational curses, and I like to say severing generational curses, and for me it was more.
So sorry, what do you mean by that? By the word that you use? Severing.
It's literally not breaking it; it's cutting it.
It's cutting.
It's cutting it.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it was, I had to be intentional about breaking generational curses, because what I realized is curses don't get broken by accident. I had to be intentional in doing that. Me and my wife had to be intentional. And the second part I want to answer your question on is, one of the abuses that was thrown at me was, when I was growing up, my stepfather never called me by my name. He called me stupid. And for years he would just say, call that stupid. Where's the stupid? And my siblings would know who to come and call, but they never called me stupid.
Wow. So the first step was to dehumanize you.
Yes. Yeah,
because that took out the emotion, that took out the feelings.
Yes. Do you want to say that again, Dr. Mann?
The name that was called, that they called Robert stupid, was actually dehumanizing him. Yeah. So which means that there was less emotion attached in the moment of the event of the abuse.
Yes.
So it's because it's not Robert.
No, it's not.
It's stupid.
It's a thing.
Yes, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how did that change your relationship with your stepfather? And relationship with yourself?
that was actually a longer road to walk. Because with physical abuse, I can show you scars.
Yes.
You know, the scars, they've healed. There's no more pain.
Yes.
That has gone on.
Yeah.
But with something so psychological as stupid, it is ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And if you not careful, the stupid, it's hidden.
Yeah.
From the naked eye. It's hidden from the abused. It's hidden from the abuser. And I remember one day while I was busy, because my wife and I like cooking, and I burned the onions or something.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came up was, stupid.
Wow.
I
Identified with it.
I
Wow.
identified with it. And,
Wow.
and for me, seeing that was the biggest. I mean, I would sit in an interview room,
Yeah.
already defeated.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would walk into a room thinking, I do not belong here.
Wow.
There's a doctor, there's a engineer. I don't belong here.
Yes.
It's funny because I'm somebody who usually speaks about trauma a lot. You know, and
Trust
that
me.
sounds like a very traumatic
Trust me.
experience that shaped who you are as an adult man and how you engage with others.
Mm.
And for me, it's like, how did you see, you know, because I usually say traumatize people. How did you have the grace and the compassion to be like, I forgive this guy?
Before we go there,
Yeah.
Phineas, before we go there,
Yeah.
because that is an interesting. I just want to go and just look at our chats. So Rosalind says to us, Robert, if you don't mind for a few seconds.
Sure, please.
In the marriage, there was infidelity. My ex-husband had about 4 affairs in the marriage. I was full of hate, rage, anger, so many emotions. I struggled with forgiveness. But God helped me, and I'm still in the forgiveness process. That thought that you had now actually sparked me, because I read this. And it's interesting how Rosalind says, in the marriage. Can you see how in her writing she distanced herself? It's not in our marriage. It's not in my marriage. It's in the marriage. And that is something interesting. But thanks, Rosalind. I'm not here to analyze you. It's just something I picked up. Heidi says, finish, you want to go?
No, I'm not going to go into that. I think let's go into Rosalind. There's a statement there
Yes.
that she said, forgiveness is a process.
It is.
And I think sometimes we forget that forgiveness is not a once-off payment.
No, it's not.
It is a process. Somebody may be listening to you right now and they think, oh, you just forgave your stepfather and then it was done. But I bet there were moments where you were triggered by what he said and you still had to be like, I forgive this man.
I think the important thing that we have to remember, I mean, in the Bible it says 70 times 7.
Yeah.
That's almost like an infinite number.
Yeah.
You know, so every time the thought came up,
Yeah.
you know, I had to stop myself and forgive him. Every time. So Saturday mornings was the worst for
Wow.
me, because my mom was at work. I was alone at home with him. And it like I said, I journaled in the book, but it was the worst time for me, because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to school as an escape. I couldn't go anywhere.
Yes.
Wow.
And for me, waking up on a Saturday with my boys, I was intentional at not just forgiving when it came up,
Yeah.
but for me it was forgiving in practice.
Yes.
Because I would go into my boys' bedroom, you know, just cuddle with them,
Yeah.
and when they wake up, they're happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
They see me first, or they see my wife first.
Yes.
So it wasn't just forgiving over and over the process, as you said,
Yeah.
but it was an act of forgiveness,
Yeah.
where you almost flush it out
Yeah.
Okay.
with something good, with something positive.
So your behavior, your everyday behavior must be laced with forgiveness.
yes,
Like everything you do.
yes,
It's laced with this forgiveness. And you know what is interesting? And Phineas you mentioned in the beginning, and I just want to say this, that what was interesting is that and when I speak to many people, I hear the sense that when I've forgiven you, it does not mean that I need to be friends with you.
no, no,
And that goes for family members as well.
yes,
Just because you've done something, you did something to me, where I felt hurt and I felt there was injustice against me, I've forgiven you.
Yeah.
But it does not mean that we're going to be sharing a meal.
No. No.
Yeah. So what are the boundaries? What are the boundaries that you have to put in place to be like, I'm going to forgive you, but you still have to deal with the consequences of what you did, which is a very painful part, because sometimes when we forgive people, we want to save them from the consequences of their actions.
Yes, they're karma.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the boundaries was, thank goodness I live so far away. So I didn't have to see him constantly.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that is important for me, that came about a few years ago, was praying for him.
Come on.
Because I do believe that he is deserving of grace.
Come on.
You know, it's not me that have to give it to him. So I think that the important thing for me was just praying for him.
Yeah. Continuously,
daily praying for him and allowing him to become to get to the point where again he forgave whatever past he's carrying, because he is carrying something.
So what I can get from that, and what comes through strongly, is Robert's dealing, and what we need to take from it is how do we change our narrative about this abuse? You know, it's just because I am abused, and you know, when you're young, you don't have the power. You don't have the way out, because you woke up with him on a Saturday morning. You're all alone. There's fear. There's anxiety. But what is interesting is that as you grow up, and I look at some parts of my existence, you got to work at that narrative every day. It's a battlefield of the mind.
Yes.
You know, it will pop up here and here and there. You know, Liesel says, it's the first time I've heard anyone referring to abuse that happened religiously. I hear how the enemy uses strategies. You know, religiously.
Oh,
you know, yes.
And sometimes when it happens religiously, it becomes a culture, to the point where that culture becomes your personality. And then when it becomes a personality, you don't think that it's wrong. It's just the way it is.
So the title of my book, He Is Just Like That, it's exactly what you're talking about.
Wow.
And when I was writing the book, I spoke to someone in our church, and I explained it to him, and he said to me, because my understanding, my limited understanding, was that this type of abuse only happens in colored communities. And I gave him the manuscript, and he read it, and he said, listen, it's not just in colored communities. This is about unforgiveness. And he encouraged me to give a copy to people from different backgrounds.
Wow.
So in our church, we have 55 different nationalities. So I could give it to Puerto Rican, I could give it to a Colombian, to a French person. So I gave it to different people, and they read it, and they all concluded that this happens everywhere. So the title is about, in our community, I'll just come back to that, where I know that Uncle Peter, when he's drunk, he hits his wife.
Yes.
Every weekend. It's something that happens every weekend. But what would our parents say? You know, he's just like that. Just leave him. Just stay away from him. I know this uncle, and I'm speaking out of experience. This uncle is literally abusing his daughter. Or sexually abusing his daughter. This one is physically abusing his son. And you have all these ills in society.
You end up with a traumatized society.
All these ills in society. And my stepfather was a pastor in church. So you've got all these ills in society being covered by people in society, people in church. They don't say anything.
That was going to be a very next question.
Sure.
How did you feel about those that kept quiet about your abuse? Those who knew, because there had to be people that knew.
But did they know that it was abuse, or did they think that it was normal?
No. But here's the question: how did you feel about them? How did you feel that nobody said anything, or did somebody say something?
You see, the thing is, if you are in in this environment
Yeah.
that becomes culture,
Yes.
you see it as an acceptable
Yeah.
practice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't see them as not saying anything. I didn't see them as being complicit.
Yeah.
I didn't see their silence as being complicit.
Wow.
For me, it was just that is the norm.
This is the way it is.
That is a norm. Until I grew up and I realized that I love my son.
Yeah.
And this is a different and this is a different relationship I have. And only then did I realize that this is wrong.
Wow.
It in the moment, at the time, I didn't realize it. I didn't speak up against it because Auntie Doris next door, she sees it and no one says anything.
Wow.
So how can I verbalize
Yes.
an abuse that no one else sees?
And also, it's a language, right? If people don't have a language for something, they can't really say anything about
Yes.
it because it's like it's a foreign language. If I speak about traumas, like Phineas, what is that?
Yes.
Until
yes.
people get educated, or
Yes.
maybe they leave that environment into a different environment.
Exactly.
Let's speak about that because I
Exactly.
thought I heard an amen inside there. So, was it a change of an environment that kind of altered your thinking or the way you saw what was happening in your community?
I think it was a change of environment, and that's why I felt it so strong to bring about awareness again.
Right. Yeah.
But also to make people aware of there is something better than that.
Yeah.
Because when I left South Africa, I was still under the understanding that nothing different happened to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But only when I removed myself from there.
Yes.
And can I just say, my situation or my experience is not unique.
No.
You know, I
True.
know people who are going through worse experiences than me, or maybe not as bad. But I think removing myself from the environment, from what has been perpetuated,
Wow.
I could see the ills. I could address it, and I don't think if I was still in El Dorado Park, maybe married and living in the same area,
Yes.
I would have not the guts, but I would have the ability to confront him and tell him about what he did, what he did wrong, because it's just a cycle that's being
Yes.
perpetuated.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that for me is a, I always say, and I even wrote it in a book where I said that I never knew I grew up in poverty until somebody told me. And I sort of get that feel as well, that we don't know how to deal with this.
No.
We as a society, it's an accepted norm. And we find that this abuse perpetuates. I mean, somebody mentions that they married 50 years and they're still suffering from psychological traumas, mental abuse. And I sit still and the first question would always be asked that, and this will lead to my next question. The question is always asked, but why don't you just leave? Why didn't you just pack up and divorce?
Yeah.
But I can hear in your voice that you've clearly overcome that binding relationship between the abuser and the abused, or the perpetrator and the victim, however you want to coin that.
Yeah.
So, was that a difficult thing to break that relationship, to break that cycle
Between me and my
and your stepdad? Because I mean, you were still caught up in this relationship. Yeah.
But I'm gonna almost differ on that because I didn't see it as a relationship.
Wow.
Because how can you have a relationship with me if I'm a thing?
Yes.
Because coming back to stupid,
Yes.
I cannot have a relationship with that. So for me, there was never a relationship.
Okay.
I was literally lower than a slave.
Wow.
So for me, there was nothing to break.
So it was
From
just an
that.
interaction.
It was an interaction. So me leaving was as if I was never there.
So it doesn't matter if you're an uncle or you're a parent. If the abuse at the side of the table, the relationship ends. From your perspective, in terms of if you treat me like a thing, there can no longer be a relationship. because oftentimes we want to be in relationship with people, but how can you be in a relationship with somebody that is abusive and still honor and call that a relationship? Because if you treat it like like an animal, how can you interact as a human being towards that person?
Yes. No, I don't think there's a relationship. But I think can I just answer another question where people that went through abusive relationships in a marriage, where the question would be, why don't you just leave him? Like Dr. Marlin said. And I think with my mum, for me it was like, again, the church. Because you are in a church, it's deemed frowned upon if you divorce. You have to stick it out. Because that is what God put together. But a lot of the times it's not. And that led to me not being in a church for a very long time. Because I couldn't understand the hypocrisy of God is love, but he allows this to happen in a Christian religious church. Sorry, a house.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, what people don't realize is the emotional abuse or pain that someone has to carry, even after they forgive.
Yes.
The pain does not go away when I say I forgive you.
Interesting.
I still have to go through that. And for me, I just wanna check with you: was therapy and counseling a thing? Like, what practical things? What practical things helped you to get to a place of being restored? Or maybe I could be saying that maybe you're still healing.
I don't know. I'm not sure whether this will answer your question, but I didn't attend any any sessions on that. Ever since I forgave him in the UK 19 years ago, I've never attended. And I think the for me the beauty about it is just how God works.
God came into it.
You know, where you don't need therapy. You don't need, if you genuinely forgive. The healing will come. You don't have to go to therapy. You don't have to consult people. The healing will come. And I believe that the healing has taken place because I've written down everything that mostly that I can remember.
I mean, the fact that you pray for him says a lot, because some people will say, I forgive this person religiously, but in their heart, if you ask them to pray for that person or even speak well of them, they can't even speak well of that person or even pray for them.
Finis, I said to somebody today, I love the sinner, not the sin.
Not the sin, yes.
I love the sinner, and that's that pivotal part of that forgiveness. I looked at forgiveness because I'm sort of researching the topic, and it says that to forgive somebody, imagine you go and borrow money, and it's $1 million, and I borrow to you, Robert, and you say to me, Marlin, I can't pay this money back, and I say, don't worry, Robert, I forgive you of your debt. The burden of the forgiveness lies on the one who forgives.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
So you sit with the burden because I've forgiven. I've decided to sever. And I love what you're saying. It's an intention. I've got to wake up this morning and I've got to say, this is where it stops.
Yes.
Because the anger, and I've been told, some wise people told me, that being angry at somebody is drinking poison, expecting somebody else to die. Because what I find is, and I mentioned this in a Bible class, that and that people forget after a certain period of time why they're actually angry with each other. The two of us had a scuff today. 20 years from now, we're still not speaking. The kids ask, hey, Dad, why are you, Uncle Robert, not speaking? And I go, my boy, I'm quite not sure. Because I kept it alive. And sometimes we keep the abuse alive.
Yes. No, definitely. We my wife and I facilitate the marriage course in our church. and one of the topics is unforgiveness. And the way they illustrate it is when a couple when they go through something, when they need to resolve the issue, they'll put a ball in between them, a huge ball in between them.
Yeah.
And they'll take that ball, put it in front of them, deal with the issue that's in front of them, rather than dealing with I deal with Janice and Janice deal with me.
Yes.
No, we're dealing with the issue, and I think by doing it that way, 20 years later, you would have forgotten about the issue that we had.
Correct.
Because we've removed it from the marriage, and then we've dealt with it and we moved on. And I think that's
for South Africans that are rugby fans, it's play the ball, not the man.
Yes.
Play the ball, not the man. Somebody interestingly says,
I think I will say, Dr. Omar, let's go into these messages, because this is we have never had such interaction.
But here's the thing, I mustn't mention the names.
No, we should.
So be careful.
Yeah.
So the person says that sorry is an empty word if the perpetrator continues to do the same thing over and over. So what is interesting about that? So the person does something and says, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And the person does it again and says, I'm sorry. And there was a diagram, you won't believe it. Academia speaks about everything. And that's why I just sit back and I go, people can come up with models for the weirdest stuff under the sun. Not that forgiveness is weird. And then the author writes, Timothy, I'll get to his name again, Phineas, remind me. Timothy Keller. He writes a book on forgiveness, and he speaks about this diagram of when you forgive, you have to bring it out into the open. And that happens on the first occasion.
Yes.
And if it's not the first occasion, let it be the next occasion. That I accept your apology, but I have to take a stand for what was done. Because here's the thing, you get others that might not survive this trauma.
Yes.
Because and we read in media how young people take their lives.
There's an interesting message that we got here from Liesl. She said, I used to feed him when he was on the street. Which means this is the person who abused her, and she used to feed that person on the street. And sometimes, being kind towards somebody that has hurt you, it can be a little bit very difficult. But I love the fact that you have turned forgiveness into a lifestyle within your marriage and within your interaction with your children. How is that? How's that relationship
with my boys?
With your boys?
That's the intentional practice you're talking about.
Yes. I think, and I think my wife is listening in as well. But you
must say hi to her and the boys. Please do. Call them by name.
Shout out.
Yeah, this is hi Janice, Caleb, and Gabriel in Abu Dhabi. So I think just trying to answer your question. The relationship I have with my boys, it's something that again I never had. And when I look at them, how we have purposefully cut the generational curse and trying to infuse positivity, trying to infuse love into their lives, and with doing that, they become independent. They become matured. But the important thing is, I do not want to raise my kids where they have to have where they need to forgive their past, where they need to forgive something in their past. So for them, they are starting life free from any burden.
But also it's because somebody had to pay the price. And sometimes as parents, we don't pay the price so that our children have a better future. How important is that we heal so that those who come after us don't have to carry the same burden?
You see, it's easier to continue the cycle.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't require you to work at it. It doesn't require you to put the effort into it.
Right.
But it's hard work.
Yeah.
To literally break the cycle and teach in my case, my boys, something valuable in life. But for me, the beauty, and I always say that the relationship I have with my boys is something absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
I can never, and a lot of the times when I look at them and I see what they are achieving, what they are doing, and how they carry themselves, it's just emotional.
Yeah.
You know, and I just wanted to say something now, but I forgot. Yeah. So sorry. So just to come back almost to something I said earlier, the reason why Saturdays was so bad for me was that when my mom left to go to work, I would be laying in bed, just retracing her steps as she leaves the house, and then within an instant, my stepfather would be in a door frame, and I would close my eyes, not allowing him to see that I'm awake.
Wow.
Because after living with him for so long, I couldn't just wake up and go make myself breakfast.
Yeah, you didn't feel safe.
I didn't feel at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't feel at home. So I would be lying there waiting for him to wake me up. And every single Saturday, without fail, the him waking me up was with a slap.
Yeah.
So I would close my eyes but leave a sliver open,
Wow.
seeing him coming towards me, and as he comes towards me, lifting his hand, bringing down his hand and slapping me, I would not flinch, because otherwise he would know that I was awake. And that was something that I said I do not want to do with my boys. That's why I would go in their rooms and just waking them up lovingly, purposefully.
Because that would have a trauma response.
Yes.
Yeah, and you live with that trauma response.
Yeah.
You know what? We're coming to that time now, and I know I'm taking over.
Just if we can read this WhatsApps.
Yes.
Before our
you're
time
saying
goes.
when my name is Liesel, that one?
I think Liesl, we went through that.
Yes. She was abused by her stepdad, and wow, she says you're taking her back. But God is wow. She says from 4 years old up until the age of 16. But he told me I must not tell my mom because she will be giving me a beating. What is interesting about this, and I'll say it in Afrikaans, that what keeps the community closed is wat gaan die mense sê? You know, wat gaan die mense sê van ons? Jy trek ons se vel van ons gesig af. Wat gaan die mense sê? And that for me is the one thing that keeps us bound.
Yes.
You know?
Enslaved.
And enslaved. You know, I must tell you this. Please read Romans 7:15 to 20. What I'm supposed to do, I'm not doing, because what I shouldn't be doing comes easier to me. And that's just coming back to your words. And then just to crown it all, I just want to know from you, did this lead you to Christ? Did these experiences in the process, and if so, tell me about it. If it enhanced your experience with Christ, please, for 1 or 2 minutes, just shed some light on this engagement with Christ coming with this burden.
I think the experiences leading me to Christ are not so much so, but I think it strengthened my relationship with Christ. I got back into church. I'm serving in church. I mean, just before I came here on Saturday, because our church is on Saturday.
Yeah.
I delivered a sermon on identity, which is based on the word stupid, and I think to answer the question is it literally strengthened my relationship in Christ.
Yeah.
Because I could see the fruits of forgiveness.
Come on.
I could see the blessings that me forgiving him. I'm actually living in the blessings. Me waking up with the boys, me taking them to football, literally them just coming down and just giving me a hug or kissing me or whatever.
Yeah.
These are the fruits and the blessings of forgiveness. And if that is not in the Bible, then I'm probably making it up.
I think the amazing thing when I hear your story is that you're a man who didn't grow up with love, but somehow you found love, so that you can be able to give it to your boys. And sometimes we can use our background as an excuse and say, I didn't grow up with this, so I cannot give it. How important is it to be like, okay, what happened to me is not my fault, but it is my responsibility to heal?
I think in order to move forward, I once read this story about these two brothers, and one grew up, got married. He was a model citizen, married, children, had a job, and the other brother was an alcoholic.
Yes,
he went through multiple relationships, and they were asked, how come you are like that and you are like that? And they both gave the same answer: because of my father.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think for me, it's important, because what I've realized is that love, in the end, I saw that it comes naturally. I have to be purposeful in hating. I have to make an effort in being nasty to my boys. I have to make an effort in cheating on my wife.
Yes.
It's an effort.
Yes, because it came out, that's out of character.
Yeah. It's out of character.
Yes.
But with God being love,
yes,
we are love.
Yeah.
And that is
that is in character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't need to, we literally do not need to, I wouldn't say make an effort, but we don't need to be out of character.
Yeah. We don't need to fake it.
Yeah. We don't need to fake it. Yeah. But being nasty, being angry, being tempestuous all the time, that is effort.
Yeah, I mean the Bible speaks about the fruits of the Spirit, and it always speaks about abide in me, and you shall bear much fruit.
Yes,
correct.
So when we become a little bit fleshy, is because maybe we are disconnected from our relationship with the Father. But if we remain in Him, fruits of forgiveness will flow, even to the point where you're like, I don't want to forgive this person, but you feel compelled to forgive, not because Phineas can, but because the Christ in Phineas can.
Yes.
Because a lot of times it's not Phineas doing it; it's the Spirit of God actually.
But see, the beauty of Phineas is when you actually do forgive and you genuinely forgive.
Yeah.
Not I forgive you.
Yeah.
But there's a Afrikaans word, ek bury jou bumper. I'm gonna get you one day. But I'm saying I forgive you because we are in the midst of people.
Yeah.
But if I forgive you genuinely, then like you said, the fruits will be evident, and people will see that. You don't have to fake it. People will see that. And that is genuine forgiveness for me.
Listen,
I must say this one.
Yes.
Velno Nelson from Pretoria says hi.
Friend of mine, yes.
Okay, awesome. He just mentioned that.
Listen,
it's again
I want
our 5-minute show.
We need 5 hours.
we always end up with this 5-minute show.
On this topic, connection, how do we get the book,
Yes, I think that what we're going to do is via Liesel.
Yes.
Yeah, so via Liesel's name at... And she's brilliant at Kitsukuro Publishing House. It's a book house.
Okay.
You can contact CCFM, or maybe you can ask me on my socials, because she published my book as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So my number is 073 011 5617, or my YouTube channel, Dr. Dr. Marlin, Marlin, Hoffman, Hoffman. Please like and subscribe, and remember, we can no longer be silent. Let's break the silence. Phineas,
is there anything that you would like to share? One last statement, and maybe your connections on how people can get this amazing book, because now I want to get it.
I've got mine. I'm sorry, Phineas.
No, I think for me the one last statement is the beauty about forgiveness. It's a lot of people think it's a weakness, but it's not.
Come on.
It's actually strength. And a last thing from me is forgiveness is a gift you give yourself.
Come on.
Wow.
Yeah. Nobody can you gotta give it to yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, is man, I don't want to leave this topic, but unfortunately, we have to love and leave you. Thank you so much for engaging on our WhatsApp. I think this is the most engaged topic that we have ever had on the show, and I can tell that it has provoked some of you. It is very close to your heart, and we pray that the Lord will lead you into a space of actually being free, because that's what forgiveness is all about. It gives you that sense of freedom, gives you that sense of healing and releasing. So we pray that the Lord will release you, and you will learn what it really means to really forgive. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Connect with Dr. Marlin if you want more details on how you can get this amazing book. I'm going to try to make sure that we get it. So next week, we'll continue with the show as usual, but we may surprise you again, because Dr. Marlin always has something up his sleeves. But anyway, God bless you. Take care of yourself and stay blessed.